It was a quiet Sunday morning when Mr. Raymond, a reclusive millionaire, walked into his vast marble kitchen to make himself a cup of coffee. His mansion was always spotless, echoing with silence. But that morning, a faint sound caught his attention, the creak of the pantry door. He frowned, thinking perhaps his maid had arrived early. But when he turned the corner, what he saw made him freeze. A small girl, no older than 9, was standing on her toes, reaching for a loaf of bread with trembling hands. Her clothes were torn, and her hair was tangled. For a moment, both stood frozen, the rich man and the hungry child. The girl's eyes widened in terror as she realized she had been caught. The loaf of bread slipped from her tiny hands and hit the floor with a soft thud. "Please, sir, don't call the police," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Raymond's brow furrowed. He had dealt with thieves before, but never one so small and frightened. "Why are you here?" he asked calmly. She didn't answer, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Are you hungry?" he asked again, his tone softening. She nodded slowly, clutching her stomach. Something inside the cold-hearted businessman stirred, something he hadn't felt in years. He picked up the loaf from the floor, brushed it off, and placed it gently on the counter. "Sit down," he said. The girl hesitated, unsure if it was a trap. But hunger overpowered fear, and she obeyed. Raymond sliced the bread, added butter, and poured her a glass of milk. As she ate, tears continued to roll down her face. "What's your name?" he asked. "Lily," she mumbled between bites. "Where are your parents?" She stopped chewing. After a long silence, she whispered, "My mother is sick, and my father went away." Raymond felt a lump form in his throat. He hadn't expected this answer. He listened as she explained how she had been caring for her mother, who couldn't get out of bed. They had no money, and she had come to the mansion because it was the only house in the neighborhood with lights still on at night. She had hoped to find some food. Raymond sat quietly, guilt creeping into his chest. He had always kept his gates locked and his world closed off from others. Now, hearing the girl's story, he realized how small acts of kindness could mean everything to someone struggling to survive. Instead of anger, compassion took over. "Lily," he said softly, "you don't have to steal anymore." She looked up in confusion. "You mean, you won't call the police?" Raymond smiled faintly. "No. In fact, I'm going to take you to your mother." Lily's eyes widened. "You'd do that?" He nodded, grabbing his coat. The girl followed, nervous but hopeful. As they stepped out into the cold morning, she pointed toward an old shed at the edge of town. That was where she lived, a small, broken structure with holes in the roof and no door to keep out the wind. When they arrived, Raymond was stunned. Inside the shed, a frail woman lay on a pile of blankets, coughing weakly. Lily rushed to her mother's side, whispering, "Mama, he's not angry. He brought food." The woman looked up, her eyes filled with shame and gratitude. "I'm sorry, sir," she murmured. "She only wanted to help me." Raymond knelt beside her and placed the bread in her hands. "You don't need to apologize," he said. "You raised a brave little girl." Tears welled up in the woman's eyes as she whispered, "Thank you." Raymond stood and looked around. The place had no light, no warmth, no hope. He couldn't imagine anyone living here. "You both can't stay here another night," he said firmly. "I'm taking you to my house." The woman tried to protest, but Raymond wouldn't hear it. He lifted her gently and carried her to his car while Lily trailed behind, clutching the loaf of bread. For the first time in a long while, Raymond felt that his wealth could finally serve a purpose beyond himself. Back at the mansion, Raymond arranged a guest room for them. The woman lay in a real bed, and Lily watched in awe at the shining chandelier above her. It felt like stepping into another world. Raymond called his personal doctor to examine Lily's mother. Hours later, the doctor reported that she was severely malnourished but treatable. Relief washed over Lily's face. "She'll be okay?" she asked. Raymond smiled. "Yes, she will." That night, Lily slept peacefully for the first time in weeks, under a warm blanket, safe from the cold. Over the next few days, Raymond visited them every morning. He learned that Lily's mother, Clara, had once been a teacher but lost her job after falling ill. Lily had dropped out of school to care for her. Raymond felt a deep sense of regret for all the times he ignored the suffering around him. No child should have to go through this, he thought. He made a silent promise to himself: he would change their lives, no matter what it took. He hired a nurse for Clara and made sure she received proper treatment. He also arranged new clothes and toys for Lily. But when he offered her the gifts, she shook her head shyly. "I don't need toys, sir. I just want my mom to get better." Her words hit him like a wave. All his money, all his possessions, none had ever brought him such pure truth. He realized then that kindness wasn't about charity, it was about love. Weeks passed, and Clara began to recover. Her face regained color, and she could sit up without help. One morning, she asked Raymond, "Why did you help us? You didn't even know us." Raymond looked out the window and said quietly, "Because once, I needed help too. And no one came." His voice trembled slightly. Clara didn't ask more, she could see the pain behind his eyes. Sometimes, the richest people carry the deepest scars. Lily started helping in the kitchen, where the same bread she once tried to steal was now freely given to her every morning. The staff adored her. She laughed often, and her joy filled the mansion with warmth it had never known before. Raymond found himself smiling more, feeling something he hadn't felt in years: family. One afternoon, Raymond drove them to a nearby school. "Lily," he said, "it's time for you to study again." She hesitated. "But what about Mama? I'll take care of her," he promised. Her eyes lit up with excitement. She hugged him tightly, a small gesture that melted his heart completely. He realized that saving one child's future could change an entire life's meaning. Months turned into a year. Lily excelled in school, and Clara fully recovered. Raymond became a frequent visitor to the school, often bringing books and sponsoring other children who needed help. People began to notice the once cold businessman had changed. When asked what caused it, he always smiled and said, "A loaf of bread." The story spread across the town, the tale of the millionaire who caught a thief and chose kindness instead of punishment. Parents told their children about it as a bedtime story, and neighbors looked at Raymond's mansion differently, not as a fortress of wealth, but as a beacon of hope. One day, Lily stood before Raymond with a certificate in her hand. "I got the top marks in my class," she said proudly. Raymond's eyes glistened. "I knew you would," he said softly. "You have a brave heart." She grinned and replied, "You gave me a chance." Those words stayed with him long after. Clara later returned to teaching, with Raymond's help. She became a teacher at the same school Lily attended. Every day, they passed the old bakery where Lily once dreamed of having bread without stealing it. Now, they could buy as much as they wanted, but they never forgot the night that changed everything. Raymond often reflected on that moment, how a scared little girl had broken into his kitchen and, without knowing it, broken the walls around his heart. He realized that true wealth wasn't measured in money, but in how many lives one could touch with it. He established a foundation in Lily's name to help children in need. The first plaque read, "No child should ever go hungry." Every time he saw it, he smiled, remembering the night he almost made the worst mistake, calling the police, but chose compassion instead. Years later, Lily grew up to become a successful woman, a social worker dedicated to helping families like hers. She often visited Raymond, who had grown older but happier. "You saved me," she'd say. He'd laugh and reply, "No, Lily, you saved me." As time passed, Raymond's mansion no longer felt empty. Laughter filled its halls, and warmth filled his heart. When he looked at Lily and Clara, he saw not strangers, but the family he never had. His life had come full circle, from loneliness to love, from greed to giving. One evening, as the sun set behind the hills, Raymond sat on the porch with Lily and Clara. The air was calm, and birds sang softly in the distance. "You know," he said, "that loaf of bread was the best investment I ever made." They laughed together, and the sound echoed through the golden light of dusk. Lily reached for his hand and said, "You taught me something, Mr. Raymond. You taught me that kindness can change a person's whole world." He squeezed her hand gently. "And you reminded me that sometimes, angels don't have wings, they just need bread." When Raymond passed away years later, he left everything to his foundation. His gravestone simply read, "He fed the hungry and found love in return." And every year, on the anniversary of that cold morning, Lily and her mother placed a loaf of bread at his grave, a symbol of the day a simple act of mercy changed 3 lives forever.